Hello, and welcome back to the Our Voices podcast. It is Black History Month, and we have had 2 tremendous episodes with student athletes giving us their experiences and opinions on Black history. But we have yet to hear the female perspective on Black history. So today, we have 2 amazing student athletes from the University of Utah women's track and gymnastic team here to drop some knowledge on us. We have Maya LeBar from the University of Utah women's track team and Miss Cammy Hall from Utah Red Rocks. Ladies, how you doing?
Good.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's give our listeners a little background about yourselves. Maya, tell me a little about where you're from.
All right. Well, I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, but was adopted and grew up in Spokane, Washington, in a single mom household. So it was just me and my mom. Started running track when I was in middle school, and I'm a short sprinter. So I do like the 100, the 200, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Nice. Tell me a little bit about Spokane, because Washington and Atlanta is very different.
They are very different. Spokane is cool. You know, if you've ever been to Seattle, Spokane is very different from Seattle. It's a much smaller city, and it's on the side of the state that's actually a desert. So very different climate for running track as well. A little bit better weather, I would say. But growing up in Spokane, there wasn't a lot of kids that looked like me. So I had, some different experiences than some of the other, people that I've been able to interact with here in Utah. But yeah.
Nice. Now, Cammy, I know you're from the East Coast. Tell me what that was like.
It's very humid. I'm from Virginia, near DC. So I was in an area similar to mine. Not a lot of people that looked like me. Just because that's kind of where my parents wanted us to grow up. That's where the opportunities were and like the better schools. So they kind of sacrificed that for us.
Nice. Now, I know you got 4 brothers.
I do.
Oh, are you in the middle?
I am, actually.
Oh, my gosh. So you got the annoying younger ones and the protective older ones.
Yes. Well, they're all really protective. So, yeah. I am... So I have a younger brother, 3 older, and we kind of, our range in age is, about 4 years apart. So, but we all, have a good time.
Yeah, no problem. So I want to talk a little bit about, Virginia. And, you guys both have said that you grew up in predominantly white communities where people didn't really look like you. So, Cammy, tell me a little bit about what that was like, getting into sports and growing up with your 4 brothers. Exactly what experiences you guys had?
So the experiences I had, I kind of was just confused on why people acted a certain way just because I was so young. I didn't really understand it. I did have friends that looked like me, but it was just kind of hard to find those kinds of people. And gymnastics is a very expensive sport. So thinking about the lack of opportunities that Black people have, even to this day, you don't see a lot of Black girls in gymnastics. So it's it was the same kind of environment, going straight from school to practice and being the only Black person on my team until now recently. I'm blessed to have another girl on the team who looks like me. But it's just kind of been that way my whole life. And it's really just kind of frustrating because it's obviously not really in my control. That's just kind of where my parents wanted us to be as a family. So, just making that sacrifice. I know it took a lot on them, but they really wanted the best for us. And unfortunately, that came with a price to pay. So.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy for a lot of people who don't understand the gymnastics life. It's dedication ever since you're able to walk, and so you don't really have time for social stuff. Your social aspect, your social life is within your sport. So when you don't have a lot of Black people within your sport, you really don't get to interact with a lot of Black people. So it was difficult in that case to really understand. So talk about your choice from college, right? You're on the East Coast and you decided to come to Utah. What was that about?
So I actually struggled to get recruited for gymnastics. And I think I was just trying to be realistic with myself when I got to my junior year, just kind of like maybe thinking about D2 or D3 schools, because that's just at the point where I was with my recruiting process. I wasn't really getting anywhere. And then I actually was committed to the University of Maryland at the end of my junior year. But I was a walk-on, which he had explained several times to me, so I knew kind of what to expect. And I sat down with my parents, and I'm blessed that they have jobs that can provide and that we can plan out financially, and it wouldn't like drain their pockets necessarily. So at that point, I was just happy to go to school for gymnastics because I had been working towards that goal pretty much my whole high school and middle school career. And then I was at a club meet in Arizona, I want to say, and the head coach here, Tom Farden, saw me there. He was at my gym that Wednesday after that Saturday meet. Oh, wow. And then I was in Salt Lake that next week. Wow. And then
when people don't want to make something happen, they can make it happen.
Yeah, he's definitely invested, and that really took me by surprise because I really thought he had the wrong person when my coach told me about him. And then I came and I committed on a partial scholarship because I just want to set myself up for success, and I felt like that was one of the best routes to take. And just Utah has the facilities to make me a better student and a better athlete all around, so I decommitted.
Well, I mean, that's great. I do want to talk a little bit about Maryland, about, kind of the choice, because you can really walk on anywhere. But you decided Maryland. What was going through your mind as far as you choosing Maryland? Because close to home, what was going through your mind? Exactly.
It was close to home. I'm very much a homebody. And going anywhere farther than like Texas was like out of mind.
Out of the question. Yeah.
Exactly. And I really wanted to go to a school where majority of the people looked like me. I did not want to be the minority, just because that's what I've been through my whole life, and it was getting old, and I wanted something new, and that's what I looked forward to about Maryland, is that when I was on that campus, everybody looked like me, not necessarily on the gymnastics team, but on campus, just in the facilities, in the classrooms. That's definitely was my main point for committing in the first place. So, and it was very close to home. It was very close to my mom's job. We talked about having lunch dates. But I made that sacrifice, came 2,000 miles across the country to somewhere I had never stepped foot in before, ever.
That's the same way for a lot of athletes who've never been. Yeah, there's a lot of people who's never seen snow. So I know a lot of Utah people are real happy that you chose Utah. So thank you. But Maya, what about you? Tell me about what brought you to Utah.
Yeah, so I kind of had a similar experience to Cammy. I started taking track seriously when I was in 9th grade, and track and field is a sport where there are a lot of people that look like us. Mm-hmm. So for me, it wasn't like a huge concern. I figured that like whatever school I go to, there's going to be a decent amount of diversity on the team. But I also, I was in my senior year, and I didn't start running good until maybe like 2 months before the state competition, which is in May. And so at that state competition, I found out that one of the coaches from Utah was going to be flying out to watch me. And I was previously verbally committed to Oregon State. And I thought that was, where I was going for sure, but ended up having a great meet, dropping the #1 seed time for seniors in the state of Washington. And then the doors just like opened. But it was like, okay, this coach has been interested in me, from the start.
Loyalty.
And the facilities here were amazing. I knew that I had a good relationship with that coach from the get-go, someone who was going to believe in me and push for me and fight for me and really want the best for me and be able to provide, everything that Utah provides for us. So that was the real reason that I decided to come here.
Love it. Again, this is the Our Voices podcast. I'm here with Maya LeBar and Cammy Hall. Now, Maya, you grew up with a white single adopted mother, right?
Yes, I did.
Was that difficult for you? I think you told me she had no sports background.
Yeah.
And so how did you get into track, if that was the case?
This is so funny. I used to do cross-country skiing, which is like the last sport that you would ever see a Black person doing, but also just like, I'm a sprinter. Like, that's the complete opposite of what I do now. And that was like the sport she was into. But yeah, she's not into football, not into track, not into anything. So we didn't really connect on that level, which was kind of tough. But I would say she's done everything for me and supported me through everything. So our relationship is amazing, but she kind of had to learn as I got more into track, you know, how to step into that world and kind of leave her dreams for me to be a cross-country skier behind. But yeah, I don't know. It's been a kind of rough ride getting to where I am now, as far as, you know, like the identity thing, growing up around a family that's all white and kind of stepping into that identity as a Black woman. So,
this brings me to a great point that, you know, for a lot of people that I've talked to, you know, especially that are in interracial relationships and now they have Black kids.
Yeah.
So now they get a great feel into kind of what it's like being Black. But for your mom, has she ever talked to you about, you know, any difficulties that she had, you know, raising you or experiences like that?
Yeah, for sure. I think we had more difficulty when I was younger just because, you know, we don't look like we're related. And so when I was in school, people wouldn't assume that she was my mother. And so she'd come and pick me up from class, and it's the first day of school, and the teacher's like, what's going on? Who is this woman who's coming to... Yeah. And I'm like, Mom. And then they're like, oh, and they feel bad, you know, immediately. But it's just because, you know, you don't see that every day. So you have to have that understanding. But at the same time, it's tough on the other side of the spectrum from her perspective and my perspective, kind of dealing with that initial judgment of our relationship. Once you get to know the story, it's a complete different reaction. But yeah, I think just people not associating us with one another in that way. And even now that I'm older, we'll be out to dinner and they're confused. It's like a mentor relationship rather than like it's a mother. Yeah, it's my mom. So yeah.
Nice. So I want to get into you guys' communities, right? You guys both grew up in some predominantly white communities. So I want to know kind of how you guys were feeling. You know, Maya, you alluded to identity issues, you know. So Maya, tell me a little bit. Did you guys feel normal or did you feel different? You know, as a young age, you don't really know what's going on. But like, you know, as you get older, you start to realize some people are treated a little different. Yeah. How was that? Did you feel normal? Did you feel different?
No, I definitely felt different. I don't think there's any way you can grow up as a Black person in a white community and not feel different, which is a harsh reality, but it is the reality. It's how you combat that reality that I think is really important, and how you kind of grow into the identity that you want to be as you age. But it takes effort. It's not something that you can like passively do, because otherwise you might not find that community. But yeah, I think it's just about how you learn as you grow. And also my mom was really invested in making sure that I was culturally aware of, you know, who I was and where I came from. So we always celebrated, you know, major Black holidays and stuff like that. But that's that effort that it takes to make sure that you're, you know, you're raising a child in a white community. And even, you know, I had white parents. So it takes that effort from them. They have to like want to do that. It's not something that you can just ignore. So
it's got to be crazy.
Yeah.
As like a kid, and say your mom never did that, right? As far as you seeing or being around other Black people or a part of any Black culture, to kind of get a shock. Now I'm old and I'm just like, I just don't know what that's like. Yeah. And so that's gotta be crazy. What about you, Cammy? Tell me a little bit about the communities and if you felt normal or different when you grew up.
I definitely felt different, 100%. Obviously, when I was younger, it was not an issue in my mind. I think I just wanted to play when I was younger, you know, go to the gym, flip around, release all my energy. But definitely as I got older, I started to realize it more, like, especially in the news, just like not small things, but like issues like, what's his name when he was shot? That's a lot of people.
Yeah, I was saying, which one?
Which one?
I think it was when I was in middle school, and it was like the very first moment. I
kind of
opened
dating me right now. She says middle school, and I'm like, how long was that? So, you mean Trayvon Martin?
Yes, I do. Yeah, and just watching that whole trial on the news with my parents and my brothers, I just remember them sitting us down and having that serious talk about, look, like, this is very real, and it could happen here, and it could happen to you. Like, there's no telling when, and you always just gotta, like, protect yourself, look out for each other, all of that, and just stand up for yourself, because in this world, we do have to work twice as hard to get what we want, and sometimes a little bit more. So I think, that's in middle school was when I realized how different, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Like, all that really is different is the color of our skin. But obviously, people take it a little far and too deep. So
we'll talk about that. I want to talk a little bit more about the talk, right? The talk that your parents had to do when that happened. Like, what age do you feel like parents have to have that talk? Because Trayvon Martin was very young. I don't remember exactly. I think he was 11, 12 years old. Yeah. When does that talk need to happen for, Black parents or parents who have Black kids? And what is involved in that talk? What do they tell you?
For my family, it was definitely a safety talk, just being smart. And I think, as sad as it is, as soon as possible, I think that talk is really important, just to lay down, like, the expectations of, okay, you have to do this. And if you ever get pulled over, don't move. Like, have your ID out and your registration out already, so that when the cop comes up to the car, you're not, like, looking for something and he doesn't assume, because that could literally, unfortunately, could be anybody. And I know they would talk to my older brothers a little bit more, just because that's the role of protection that they've grown into. And I remember my dad telling my older brother that he couldn't drive their cars. He had to drive this crusty truck to school.
Right. Because it's like, why does this kid have this car? And there's just so many perception questions that you have to go through. So you literally have to take a different route, so I'm not profiled.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want people to question me why I'm in this nice car. I'm a young kid in this nice car. I must have stole it.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
There's so many aspects. And so talk a little bit more about that. I want to go into what is the difference between talking to, one of your brothers and then and your parents having to talk to you. What's the difference in talking to a young Black female between a young Black kid, a Black boy, sorry?
I think they're definitely more straightforward with my brothers than me, because just systematically it happens to men or who are profiled and just get, I guess, it happens to Black men more than women. And so they just, with that conversation, they made it very clear, this is what you can and cannot do. And, like, with me, I guess there's not, like, leeway, but it's just, like, I don't really know how to explain it. Like, I don't drive at night by myself when I go home. And I don't know if that's, like, my parents being
extra cautious. Yeah.
And if we do drive one of their nice cars, I'm definitely with my brothers. So they never really want us to be alone. But a lot of the responsibility of acting professional at all times is very much what my parents used to tell my brothers.
Really straightforward. What about you, Maya? You had a white mother.
Yeah.
So what was that talk for you? Is that something that she didn't really understand at first? And then even when she did she have that talk with you?
No, I actually never got the talk. I think I learned the talk through watching the news and just living the Black experience, kind of, which I understand, because it's not something she's ever experienced, nor is it something in Spokane, Washington, very many parents are having with their kids.
Right.
So you're just not aware that that's something that needs to happen. But that's kind of like a culture shock thing for me, is learning that that's something that I even have to be like aware of. And I think I was in high school when I kind of realized that. And like, just like hearing you, Cammy, talk about how your parents gave you that talk and kind of explained to you, and like you said, being more like professional. It's interesting because being raised by a white person, that's something that kind of is like my automatic, like go-to mechanism, which is interesting, I think. Because the fact that you even have to like tell a person to act professional, like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of tough. And it's something that like, whenever I have conversations about the talk, I kind of am like, it just makes me upset. Not only just because of why do we even have to have this conversation, but, telling Black people to act professional.
Or you can't act the way...
You can't act however it is that you would normally...
acts.
Yeah, or how you would act normally. Because it's like, I'm just being me,
right.
Right.
So, yeah, no, I never got the talk, but I learned about it.
Got you. Got you. And it's kind of hard. It's like, for your mother to like understand, it's like, I didn't know I needed to do that. We were raised in this community. She's one of us.
Yeah.
Why would I have to tell her something different?
Right. And there's so much to learn. Honestly, as I don't know what her experience was, because I'm not her, but as a white person raising a Black girl, there's so many things that you have to learn and know, from our hair to you better lotion that baby when she gets out the shower, or whatever it might be. There's just so much to learn. So things slip through the cracks.
No question. Now we talked before about assimilation and reality.
Yeah.
Right? So I want you to talk a little bit more about that. What do you mean when you talk about assimilation versus reality with people?
Yeah, so when I was saying that, I was just talking about kind of coming to Utah and how I see a lot of my Black teammates kind of hit this wall when they first come here, of Utah might be different than where they came from, and kind of how to operate within this space. And the assimilation part is, you come onto the team and it's like, are you going to continue to be the person that you were before, or are you going to quote unquote assimilate to how, society is just a little bit different here because the diversity isn't as much as, say, Georgia or wherever it might be. So I see teammates kind of struggle to be themselves. And when I say reality, I just mean we have other teammates who didn't grow up in more diverse communities and may just act slightly different and may react to coaches slightly differently. I have a teammate who calls my coach ma'am and says, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, to everything. And I have other teammates that are totally casual with their coaches. So just kind of that reality between, are you going to kind of mold yourself to the culture that's here, or are you going to, kind of keep some of that cultural roots that you might have had from where you were before?
Right. Yeah. Cammy, do you have similar experiences?
Yeah, I actually do say ma'am and sir.
Right? Yeah.
That's the benefits of growing up in a military household for you.
Right, okay.
Definitely kind of had that struggle when I got here too. Like you said, when hitting that wall and choosing what to continue to do or what to take from where you are.
Yeah.
Just because I did have teammates who did not grow up in diverse communities at all, and it was really noticeable.
Yeah.
So that struggle just kind of from high school when I thought I was over it.
Yeah.
And I already got past it and then came here and kind of had to do the whole thing over again. Exactly.
But that's what I think grows a team, And I think here, especially, my team is one of the most diverse teams in Utah athletics, which I think is really cool. But I look around me and I'm like, there are not that many Black people here. But my team is so culturally diverse and it's so cool. And I feel like we've all fully accepted each other and where we come from. And that's one of the coolest things. And I think you only get that experience and people can only learn to be more accepting of others or understand people's perspectives better when you do have that exposure and that experience. So I think it's cool.
I think my team has come a long way. I don't want to say it's because of me, but sometimes it does just take one person to kind of open up that perspective to them. And my coaches have honestly done a really good job of trying to understand what they need to do on their part to help the team grow as one, because you can't be successful if not everybody can like kind of understand you, is comfortable with you and really appreciates you for who you really are.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about your guys' teammates and kind of when a lot of these race relation things were happening in the country these past few years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when Colin Kaepernick took his knee, when, President Trump became president, you know, there was a lot of things when Trayvon Martin, Philando Castile, a lot of these things were going on in the country. How were your teammates? We talked a little bit last week with Brandon and Bryce, but I want to know with you guys, growing up in predominantly white communities. So you guys were on predominantly white teams on your high school teams, middle school teams, youth teams. What was that like as far as your teammates' reception of that? Did they totally like act oblivious to it? Did they treat you different? What was that like?
For me, most of my teammates definitely wanted to know more and were just genuinely curious about that discrepancy between the community. I know that after George Floyd was murdered, a lot of my teammates called me and they were like in distress. And I'm like, guys, I didn't know him, but like, I appreciate you like calling, feeling bad, but like
I'm also in distress too.
Exactly. Yeah, like I am like sad as well. But I think from that moment they were, I guess that opened their eyes too to just kind of how Black people are treated around the country, and they wanted to know what they could do to help me not feel like solo or alone. Exactly. And honestly, that made me happy because I was like, oh, like, I don't know, like I just wasn't really expecting it. Like because sometimes after a tragedy like that happens, it's like it blows up and then people forget about it. But I feel like my team has continued to like keep topics like that relevant, and they're comfortable. They were uncomfortable at first talking about it, but they've definitely grown to be more open and receiving of the messages from it.
Definitely. For me, I think the world needs more gymnasts because I think gymnasts are the kindest people ever. I just don't understand how they could be so nice. They were so nice to the football players when I played here a long time ago. I'm just like, we're the worst people. But I'm so happy to hear that your teammates came to you and they felt something from it, because there's a lot of aspects where people just, they don't feel anything from it. It's like, oh, that would never be me, so let me not do anything. But, you know, to know that your teammates were coming to you and that was something that you liked, you really wanted that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's awesome. What about you, Maya? What was your teammates like in high school and in your youth groups?
As a reaction to like the last 2 years or just in general?
The last 5-6 years, there's been a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. I'll talk specifically about Utah because I think my team had a really similar reaction to yours. We had like a team meeting wherein there was like just a conversation that we had, and it kind of gave the Black women on my team an opportunity to open up about how we felt in regards to everything that was happening in the country. And I think prior to that, my team wasn't really tuned in and didn't really understand. But just hearing from our perspective how we felt, it like flipped a switch. Because I think sometimes people just need to hear how you're feeling and they care about you. We're teammates. So they're going to, try and make you feel better. And I think it really helped them to understand. But I think in general in track and field, people are very turned into social justice issues. I think we're a sport that also cares a lot just because there are so many Black people who, do track. But specifically, my team here has had a great reaction. It is a continued conversation, but I am somebody who always stresses that we can, continue to have that conversation. There's always more that we can do. And I think Utah Athletics as a whole is doing a a good job in continuing that conversation. So my team falls into that category as well.
Nice.
I agree. The University of Utah Athletics is doing a great job of giving us this platform to speak on these issues. And so again, I'm talking to Maya LeBar and Cammy Hall on the Our Voices podcast. So ladies, we're winding down here. So I wanted to ask you guys what stood out to you within Black history, whether it's positive or negative. What is something that stands out in your mind about Black history? Cammy, I'll start with you.
I hate to say it, I really love the Super Bowl halftime show. Like that's
Kimmy, that is a great answer.
That's the first thing that came to mind. And honestly, I guess the music industry is just, there's a lot of Black artists that have made their mark. And just a lot of people that I enjoy listening to. And music is something that can reach everybody, I think, from different backgrounds and different cultures. So when you hear the music, it's not like you're just listening to it. You can't really judge the person yet because you haven't seen them. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like when the music plays, you have a certain reaction, and it's you like it because the song is a good song, not because of
color.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I thought the Super Bowl halftime performance was off the wall. Oh. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah,
I love Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, I know. He did his thing for sure.
No, I love that. I said it last week. I think, as far as Black culture goes, I think we have some tremendous influential power. I of course, I've traveled to many places, and I have seen so much Black presence in these countries where you would not expect it, right? And I just think that we have the power to influence the masses. We got the Island Boys now, right? The two white rappers who make songs, and they just love Black culture music. And it's for a lot of people. You see on TV, a lot of these analysts, a lot of people, they have, Black culture backgrounds as far as from the fashion to, trends, hairstyles to music, as you said. I think Black culture is extremely infectious, and I love that about it as well.
Yes.
What about you, Maya?
I can't pick one thing, but I can say the resilience that we have as a people over time. I think that, you look at Black history as a whole, and I can confidently say that our resilience, our, faith, and that drive to do better for ourselves and to continue, to fight and to be the best that we can be is kind of striking and amazing. When you think of prominent Black people in history, just looking at what they had to go through and the fact that they still continued, just speaks to that resilience as a whole. And I see it in every single Black person I meet. So I just think as a whole, when you think of Black history, just resilience, it's kind of astounding.
Yeah, just the trial over time, right? From year after year, from, even back in Africa, the stuff that they had to experience there, and then the slave trade, and then slavery here, Civil War. Then as soon as that happened, KKK was inputted, and just stood the test of time.
Yeah, even today.
Yeah.
Even today, still fighting.
And so I absolutely love that. But Maya, tell me a little bit about who do you believe has been a force for Black women empowerment?
So many, but I think I would say I'm going to pick somebody who ran track and field.
Perfect.
FloJo.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
I love her so much, not only because of her amazing talent as an athlete, but because of her ability to be herself. She had the long nails out on the track and the full face and the bodysuit. And she was just being herself and pushing our sport forward, but also pushing women forward, saying that you can be who you want to be on the track and you can be that beauty queen and still run them down, and I think that is such an amazing example for young women my age, and I'd really try to emulate that as an athlete myself. So
I love that. That's beautiful. What about you, Cammy?
That was a really good person. The first person that comes to mind would be a gymnast, Dominique Dawes, as the first gymnast, first Black gymnast. Sorry, just broke barriers, and I think I said this earlier. All it takes is one person to open the door for many. Like Simone Biles, obviously high-level athlete. She has like 5 skills named after her, and I think that alone just lets girls know that the sky's the limit, that you can do anything you set your mind to. And I think just having that ability to influence people all over the world, like she's an icon. And I really love that about her, because and she can't help it. She's,
it's just her.
It is just her. And she does it with a smile on her face every time. And that's something I try to do with my gymnastics here at the U. I just want to influence as many girls possible, because I was that girl watching on TV, just dreaming about it. And now that dream is my reality. So,
man, you guys are so impressive. Man, I want to thank you, amazing, strong, intellectual Black women, for joining me today on the Our Voices podcast. This is still so much we can do as a people to learn more about these things. But I want to thank you two for joining me today and making that possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
For all you Ute fans and listeners, please do what you can to learn and support these young women and never stop striving for equality. Please like, share, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of the Our Voices podcast.